Good morning, everyone. Today it's the study of the Gospel according to Spiritism. Elmo normally does the study, but he's on well-deserved vacations this week. So we will study together. Okay, so we are studying Chapter 16. Chapter 12, Love Your Enemies. We've been through several items, but now we are going to start with this item called hatred. And again, it's this chapter, Love Your Enemies, is always difficult for us to deal with our passions, our inferior tendencies, but the guidance from the spiritual benefactors is for us to learn how to deal with our emotions and our tendencies. Okay, so Soraya, can you read?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Hatred. Number 10. Love one another and you will be happy. Above all, take it upon yourself to love those who inspire you with indifference, hatred, and contempt. Christ, whom you should take as your model, has given you the example of this revelation. As a missionary of love, he loved to the point of offering and giving his blood and his life. The self-sacrifice that forces you to love those who insult and persecute you is painful, but this is precisely what makes you superior to them. If you hate them as they hate you, you are no better than they are. It is a spotless offering that you should present to God on the altar of your heart, an offering of pleasant fragrance, the scents of which rise up to it. Although the law of love requires that we love all our brothers and sisters without distinction, it does not shield one's heart against bad actions. On the contrary, there is the most painful test of all. I should know, since during my last earthly existence, I experienced this torture. But God is there, and it punishes in this life and in the next those who fail the law of love. Remember, my children, that love brings God closer, yet hatred draws it away. Shannon.
Okay. So when you talk about hatred, which is a sentiment that we know we have to fight against according to our understanding of the teachings of Christ and the moral teachings. But the concept love your enemies it's a lot of times misunderstood in the sense that we think that we have to love our enemies like we love our loved ones, and actually what Jesus teaches us is not to reply hatred with hatred, because if we vibrate at the same level at those that are sending these inferior vibrations to us, we are first connecting to them and associating our minds to their minds in a very unhealthy vibrational level, and we are no different than them, right? Because we cannot control what others think or do. So we cannot please everybody, and we cannot avoid people having sentiments, inferior sentiments towards us. What we can control is how we deal with that. So the challenge here is to make an effort to not replicate hatred, with unkind thoughts and gestures, and to absorb the hatred that comes towards us and send back pure sentiments. It doesn't really, as I normally say, if we move in one incarnation, we have our enemies. If we move from hatred to indifference, it's already a progress. We are already making a path forward, because of course, to move from hatred to love is a huge step, and we are not ready to do that yet. At our level of evolution, this is very hard. Achievable? Yes, otherwise we wouldn't talk about it, but very hard. Chico Xavier used to say, right, when you hate someone, you send a copy and you keep the original, which means, you know, what you send to the other is not really
What?
the same that stays with you. So it stays with you a very difficult vibrational energies that will cause you pain and harm, that can cause you a lot of things. So the task here is to change ourselves in the sense of having no hatred towards anyone. And again, as we live in times of very difficult divisions in this country and elsewhere, it's sometimes we look at ourselves and think to ourselves, oh, I don't hate anyone. I don't have any enemies. But let us look at ourselves a little deeper. Don't we? When we see those that have complete opposite views of what we have, and those that we think are doing things to harm, in our opinion, to harm others, or to cause more division in society and to cause harm, are we really not desiring anything bad to happen to them? Again, it's a question that we have to address ourselves, and we don't have to share here our opinions, but it's something that we have to challenge ourselves to think about. How much are we prepared to accept the different opinions that are completely, according to our view, completely wrong? In the end, we have to remember, I love that phrase that says, all fight has three sides, right? My side, your side, and the truth. Because we are never 100% right, and we are never 100% wrong. There is always some points that are correct on both sides. The truth is somewhere in the middle, not exactly the middle, of course, but somewhere. So the concept of hatred, we have to expand to everything that surrounds us, because again, it's very easy when it's very clear those that hate us. Let's say we have an enemy in our workplace, someone that doesn't like us, that trying to cause us harm in our workplace. So it's very simple and direct. We have one person. We need to learn how to deal with that one person. But as we expand this to our worldview, to everything that happens in the world, to all our opinions on things that happen on our, on our neighborhood, on our cities, on our countries, are we really making a true effort in not desiring harm to those that we think are wrong? Again, I'm just raising points here to expand this notion, to expand this idea of how we deal with this sentiment that, again, we are imperfect spirits. We are still evolving. So those that harm, especially those that harm our loved ones, even if it's not direct harm, but is indirect harm, our tendency is to have inferior sentiments towards them. Maybe hatred is too strong of a word, but you can use softer words, but in the end is all these negative vibrations towards those that are causing harm to ourselves and to our loved ones. How can we overcome this? Again, it's not to accept everything that is thrown at us. We have to fight for our rights, and we have to make it known that we are here to fight for what we think it's right. But how do we proceed, and how do we deal with these sentiments? That's what we are discussing here. That's what Jesus tried to tell us. Love your enemies. And again, the word love, it's a difficult word. We talk about the 7 versions of love that exist in the Greek language. Love here is the sense of not sending back the hatred that they sent to us in the same energies. So, okay, I talked for like 10 minutes. Someone else here, please share your thoughts, your ideas. Okay. Nobody hates anyone here. Great. We're all perfect spirits. I like that.
Actually, I have a question, if it's okay.
Sure, Laura.
So there are people in which we have to be around in our daily lives, sometimes daily, sometimes every once in a while. But you don't hate them, but you have great difficulty being around them due to their personal behaviors. I guess you can also say their vibration is not healthy for said individual to be around those types of people. Mm-hmm. But you have to.
Yeah.
Besides the protecting yourself and not taking anything personally, because whatever individuals do, it's never it's not directed towards someone for someone to take personally, because we've learned that it's always about that individual, the issue, not the person who they are directing attitudes or behaviors towards. Besides asking for protection and good guidance and letting it go, is there any other thing that we can do to lessen the, I guess, negative vibrations that come into our own spaces that then may imbalance us for a period of time, where that period of time be an hour or the rest of the day? You try to just let that go. You look for some good in any situation. You just keep moving forward, and you maintain your peace. I hope I'm making sense.
Yeah, you are, and then actually you're answering your own questions, right, in the way you put it. Yeah, Wayne. Yeah, you're on mute.
I'm in mute.
No, it was Wayne. Wayne had a comment.
I was thinking about this, how I used to feel towards certain groups of people who are more like criminals and such, that I hated them, and through our studies, the hate can change to pity, feel sorry for them, wish them well in to evolve to be better people. but the hate lessens. So I think that that is something of the topic or the what you were just talking about. Another way of lessening that negative emotion is to sometimes to pity people and feel sorry for them.
Yeah, and again, it's a process, right? Because you can't move from hatred to really loving in the pure sense those people, not at our stage, right? Because you get a spirit, a more evolved spirit, they don't hate to begin with. We are starting from the hatred, so we have to move away from the hatred, and to move from hatred to pity, like you said, Wayne. It's already a step forward, right? Is the ideal? No, the ideal would be for us to fully love and embrace, but we're not there. And we're not going to get there in this incarnation, probably. Possible? Yes. Again, I'm not going to say it's impossible. But and going back to what you say, Laura, so when we have these people that really cause us disturbance in our daily lives in terms of being very difficult to live with, and I guarantee we all have those around us, either in our family, our workplaces, or our daily lives. We have, as much as possible, try to minimize contact if it's possible, because if you are contaminated by the ambient, you should try to avoid that ambient, right? So let's say if you go to let's be a little bit extreme here. You go to a bar, and if you go to a bar, you are tempted to drink and you are tempted to cause disturbance. So you avoid going to a bar. You are not at a level of Francisco Xavier, right? That went to a place like a bar and everybody stopped drinking and everybody stopped doing what the harmful things they were doing, because his energy was strong enough to contaminate in a positive way all those around. You know the story I'm talking about, right? The night that his friend, when he was young, his friends took him to a lady's house, and nobody worked that night. So we're not there. So the steps that we have to do is avoid, if possible, not send lower vibrations the same way that they send to us. If we cannot avoid, prepare ourselves in the sense of what can we do to minimize the harm to ourselves in those situations. And again, each one has to find their own path. But for some people to stay in prayer, for some people to think about something else, not to engage in their thoughts. So a person is talking to you or is talking around, and you feel, this person contaminates you, harms you. If you can avoid paying attention to what they're saying, or you can think of something else, that's a possibility. If you can reply with a completely different subject, if the subject is harming you, right? The other day I was having a conversation with someone at work, and this person started to say a lot of nonsensical, according to my opinion, things. And my first reaction was to enter into an argument. And then I thought, what am I going to gain entering into this argument? There's nothing I'm going to be able to say that will convince this person that that I don't agree with them or that I think is wrong. So I just let him speak. He spoke and spoke and spoke and spoke, and then someone else brought a different subject, and we moved away from the subject and didn't engage. So avoid engagement in any way that you can. Avoid contact if possible, because again, if we can contribute positively to the environment and to the persons, then it's our duty to do it. But if there is nothing we can do because it's beyond our strength or beyond our capabilities, beyond our abilities, then we need to try to avoid those situations in any way possible. Again, one thing that I learned is there are people that that are able to take away your energies, right? Drain you of your energies when you are around them. There are some very simple ways of minimizing that. For instance, when you are talking to someone like that, you do this with your hands, you know, not in their face, but you know, you just cross your hands, because with that you avoid the energy, because the energy leaves through the hands a lot. That's why we give passes with the hands. So if you do that, you avoid losing the energy to this person. You avoid this person draining you. So these are techniques that will help us deal with situations like that. But it's an exercise. Again, Laura, it's not something that you are going to be able to do first time, second time. But the more you practice those exercises, mental exercises, physical exercises, whatever is needed to deal with these situations, the better you are going to become in dealing with that. Because what happens is, the first time, okay, we live here, and then we finish this study, and then you go there, and you face the situation, you fail miserably, and then you are going to say, I didn't learn anything, I can't deal with that. No, it's a first step. You heard it. So now you know that you need to do better next time. You prepare yourself to do better, just slightly better, right? When we talk about exercising patience here in these studies, right? This is not the type of person that you can fully learn and exercise patience. You exercise patience with those that, you know, if those small incidents that you have on your daily life that makes you lose your patience, and you shouldn't. That's how you do it, right? Someone bumps into you in the subway, or someone you are on a line to buy coffee, someone cross in front of you and buy coffee in front of you, and your first reaction is to scream or hit that person. So that's how you first learn to exercise patience, with this neutral situations that doesn't involve anything personal, and you leave the personal situation for further down the road when you are more prepared to deal with that. I know it's not a solution, Laura, but I hope it helps a little.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Wayne.
You know how every now and then you meet somebody, or you know somebody who, and like we were talking about, don't put yourself in a position where you will be not enticed, but you'll be eager to be negative. But you see people sometimes that love to engage in a confrontation. They are eager for it. And they're not necessarily bad people, but they look like they're the type of people that like the challenge of an argument or a fight of sorts. They're just, I've always thought those people were kind of funny and to be around, because there's always some friction, some action going to happen with them.
Yeah. A long time ago, I learned that there are two types of people, right? You see a fight across the street. There are those people that run towards the fight, and there are those people that run away from the fight, right? You need to understand what type of person you are, and deal with it, because running away from the fight or running towards the fight, both are not 100% correct. It's somewhere in the middle, right? You need to be able to deal with the fight that is happening, but not engage in the fight itself, right? Luis asked a question yesterday to Alex on the on the discussion that Alex was having, know thyself, right? How spiritists should deal with physical violence, right? And Alex answered, first you have to defend yourself. You don't attack, but you defend yourself. So you avoid the violence in any possible way, but you don't necessarily run away from it, right? You have to defend your rights, because if we run away from all fights, what happens is that those that, like Wayne described, that like to fight and like to impose themselves, they are going to dominate everything, right? I remember Divaldo talking in one of his lectures, right, about someone that crossed in front of him on a line to a check-in in the airport, right? He was there in the line, and someone ran in front of him, and he said he went very calmly to that person and said, "Listen, I was here before you. It's not right what you are doing. You take your position." And he said, "I was so calm and I was so direct and clear, and I was internally I was afraid the guy was going to hit me, but it was my right. It wasn't his right. So I spoke with him very calmly, very assertive, without showing any anger, without showing any." And the guy looked at me first, look at Divaldo, first had a reaction to fight, and then he looked at Divaldo and said, "Oh, okay, sorry, please go ahead." So how you show yourself in these situations will have an effect on the other person, because if you go aggressive, then you are giving the right to the person to be aggressive also, and then you are going to engage in a fight. But if you go calmly but firmly, there is a good possibility. It's not going to work 100% of the time, of course, because some people are just raged by themselves and they will try to fight. But it will work many times. You'll be able, with your positive energy, to influence these people to rethink what they are doing. Again, if we had clear solutions for everything, we wouldn't be easy here studying it. The fact that we are studying and discussing it is because we need to reassure ourselves the paths that we have to learn and to make ourselves understand and make ourselves follow, if possible, or making an effort, right? Okay, anyone else? So
Johnny.
Now we're going to enter into this part that is duels. And again, oh, Luis, yes.
Sorry, I was too slow here to open my camera. No, I think that's something that adds to this conversation. Was brought up by the speaker yesterday, probably his next to last slide, when he said, when we think about the future, should we consider our next 10 years or next 3 or 4 incarnations? I think this is a very interesting point. Thinking ahead in terms of incarnation is a pretty good on our behavior regarding what happens around us and how should we position ourselves. Was that too hermetic?
No, I saw that you like that slide, and I really like that slide because I think it's really we have Alex said we have a tendency to think only on the present. Our reactions are for now and for our very close future. And what he was trying to say is exactly what you said, right? We are building our future. We are building our next incarnations by the way we are behaving here today. So when we have this eternal view of ourselves as spirits, meaning what we are doing today is not going to affect only me in 5 or 10 years, but it's going to affect me in the next incarnation or the following one. It gives us food for thought, right? To reflect on how should we behave.
I think that was a good insight, an unusual insight, and a very good one, very practical. So I'm making a point to place it here.
Yeah, no, it was a very interesting lecture for those that missed. If you can, it's on our YouTube page. It's about know thyself and how we deal with the famous question from the Spirit's book, right? That a philosopher from the past said, know thyself. What's the number of the question, Luis? You have better memory than me too on that.
Come on.
929 or something like that. I don't remember.
It's 9 something, but now you're asking too much. I can find it here. Anyway, I think it was a slow start, very good ending, yesterday's talk.
Yeah. So when I talk about duels, again, our first reaction when we read this is, wow, this is something that existed in the mid of the 19th century and was already going on a way of being forbidden in most places, but it was something that was still very common, the duels for your honor, right? When someone offended your honor, you enter into a duel. Actually, one of in the history of this country, one of the most famous is Alexander Hamilton, right? The famous Hamilton that now it's popular because of the musical. He died in a duel in the beginning of the 1800s. So we tend to think when we get to this part that 919. Thanks, Luis. Yeah, I thought it was 929, so I was not that wrong. We tend to think that this is old duels, but let us expand the idea of duels to everyday battles, to duels of ideas, duels of personal views, and beyond that. And we'll see that we still find many duels. If we go to the gangs, right, that dominate some of the neighborhoods in this country, duels still exist. They kill for vengeance. They kill for trying to escape from the gangs. It's not exactly a duel in the sense that is written here, but it is the same principle, right? So let us, when we are studying and reading this, and it's several pages of it, several messages from spirits, let's try to think in a broader sense, not in the sense of two people fighting each other to death because the honor was challenged or something like that. Let's go beyond that, so we can have a better understanding of that this is something that still exists in our society, and it's something that we need to learn to fight to overcome. Okay. So right now.
Yes, duels. Number 11. True great are those who, considering life as a journey that must lead one to a goal, takes little notice of roughness of the way. Such individuals never let themselves be diverted from the right path, even for an instant, for their eyes constantly directed toward the final destination. It matters little to them that the brambles and the thorns of the path threatens to scratch them. Such obstacles only touch without reaching them, who continue their course regardless. To waste one's days taking revenge for an insult is to back away from the trials of life. This is always a crime in the eyes of God, and if you were not so misled by your prejudices, it would be ridiculous and a supreme folly in the eyes of fellow human beings. There is a crime in homicide by drooling. Even your legislation recognizes it. No one has the right whatever the case, to attempt against the life of fellow humans, a crime in the eyes of God, which charged the right course of action for you. Here, more than anywhere else, you are judges in your own cause. Remember that you will be forgiven according to whether you yourselves have forgiven. Through forgiveness, you approach divinity. For mercy, you should be coupled with power. As long as a drop of human blood flows on the earth by the hand of humans, the true reign of God will not yet have arrived. This reign of conciliation and love, which must forever banish animosity, discord, and war from your globe. Then the word duel will no longer exist in your language except as a distant and vague souvenir of a past which is no more. Humans will experience no other antagonism among themselves than the noble rivalry of good. Out of Bishop of Algiers.
Okay, so here what Adolf is trying to tell us, that we have to think that on our journey, on our life, the trials that are on our path should be opportunities for growth. If we are distracted by these trials, for these challenges, we are wasting an opportunity to progress. And then he goes, of course, to waste one's day taking revenge for an insult is to back away from the trials of life. Meaning, if you are dedicating your time to preparing for revenge, or even thinking of a revenge, or even desire a revenge without acting on it, you are wasting your time that can be used for more useful purpose in our lives. Let's go back to a duel, right? So you can imagine someone's honor has been challenged in some way. That's how it all started. Sometimes were simple things, right? The way you look at a woman, the companion of the woman didn't like the way that you looked at it, or even more serious things, right? When it was a dispute for money, a dispute for a small discussion in a bar. All these things were causes for duels. But here in 1861, the legislation already recognized that dueling was a crime, was a homicide in many places. This is in France, right? So duel was already being eliminated from the human legislation as a homicide, but it was still very present. They normally what they would do is do the dueling very early in the morning, at dawn, so they could avoid authorities that would prevent them from dueling, right? I was reading about Hamilton's duel, and he had no ability of firing an arm in a effective way. So he knew he was going to a duel with a very high possibility of being killed, and he went anyway. He thought it was his duty to go there. And apparently the guy that killed him didn't really want to kill him also. But when Hamilton fired first and missed completely, the guy had to fire back and ended up killing him. If I'm not mistaken, I think I read something. I'm not absolutely sure about this duel, famous duel that killed Hamilton. So, again, according to the divine law, we have no right to kill ourselves and to kill others. That's God's law. That's the divine law. If we do that, there are consequences. the law of cause and consequence, is a law, a divine law. Now, a duel is a premeditated murder because you are there with the intention of killing or being killed. So you are going to face consequences either way, either killing or being killed, because you are walking into a fight that will end with the death of someone. So you will be either a victim of a homicide or you'll be the one that committed homicide. But if you are the one that is killed, you are not exempt from the crime because you put yourself in that situation. If you put yourself in that situation, you are going to be responsible for what happens to you. So if we expand this to our daily lives, right? How can we avoid placing ourselves in situations that will cause us harm, that will cause us to have to face consequences of our mistakes? So every time, let's say, again, a very simple, let's go back to someone cross in front of you on the line to buy a coffee, very simple. And you start arguing with that person and it becomes violent and someone hurts each other if it doesn't kill each other. Why did you start the fight in the first place, right? If you go to that, again, the concept of devalue, you go to that person and say, sorry, I was here before you. If the person continues to be aggressive and continues to push, again, you made your case, you are not going to get into a fight that is not going to end up positively for you. So you move away from a possible fight. You don't engage it. If the person is unreasonable, you judge the situation and you avoid escalating the situation. It's a judgment call, of course, always. But it is those type of situations, simple situations that ended up at that time, those times being some cases of duels. Your honor was being challenged because someone that was inferior to you according to your personal judgment in terms of classes did something to you that they had no right because they were inferior to you. Simple, things of pride. And in the end, if you look at the cause of duels, it's always pride behind it, right? You are feeling that your honor is being challenged because you are being proud of yourself. So there is a lot more a lot more messages that we're going to talk about duels here, but that's the general idea here. And now I see Luis open his camera, so I'll pass to him. And Carol, you have a question. So let's have Carol ask the question first.
Oh, not really a question, but for many years I studied foil fencing, and it was a very powerful training. It was powerful not only physically, but mentally, because when you're challenged by an opponent, a worthy opponent, of course, and they are really upscale to you or better, you can become enraged and your energies can get out of control unless your mind is really centered and calm. So I can see how dueling could have really gotten out of hand in the days of yore, the olden days. So, dueling, I'm very happy to say in its sense now is not permitted or not legal. But fencing is a gracious and wonderful sport, and I learned so much from it. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Right. Thanks, Carol. Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, I imagine. Luis?
Question, Johnny. In our age, you didn't mention probably the most typical duel that we face that happens in our professional life. There are many situations where we are actually dueling when we have unfair opponents. Sometimes it's not a pride thing. Sometimes it's what is correct and what is fair that we're trying to defend. So in those professional life duels, what is your recommendation? How should we behave?
That's a good question, Luis, and I agree with you. It's a challenge that we face on our daily lives for those that are working, right? You have to fight for your rights as much as possible to a point where it's reasonable, because sometimes you are going to face injustices, and the big question is when you stop and accept the outcome as something that you have to deal and learn from it. What can you learn from it, right? Because sometimes these professional disputes, even if you think you are 100% right, you're not going to win, because it doesn't depend on you, it depends on someone else's decision, and someone else's decision may have a personal bias towards someone else or personally against you. So the challenge for us is to try to fight for our rights up to a point where we understand that there is nowhere else to go, and so we should choose a different direction. It's difficult because there are different situations, right? Sometimes it's something that you are absolutely sure that you are going to, let's say, your project plan is going to improve things in the workplace or in the product or in the company, and still it's rejected, is not accepted, is not implemented. And it is very frustrating, but sometimes you have to think of you have to calmly analyze how you are going to benefit from the situation, right? One way or another. If by pushing it, it's going to really make a difference, or if by pushing it is going to cause only more harm to yourself and no benefit. So to know when to stop and to know when to accept that what is beyond your control, it's a personal exercise, and it's a challenge. There's no recipes, unfortunately, right? Each situation is a different situation, but I think that we have to always strive to have a clean conscience, in the sense that I did my best. It didn't work, so now I'll move in a different direction. And the different direction, again, maybe to continue in the job and looking for a different opportunity, to move to another job, to wait patiently for a different opportunity. Because one thing that, and we were discussing that the other day, Luis, is that everything changes all the time. So whatever it didn't work for us today, it's not the end of the world. Maybe it's just something that we will have to learn. Our pride was hurt, and we'll have to learn to deal with it and wait for a better opportunity, because different opportunities will come, right? Maybe not in that place, maybe in another place, maybe we won't come in this lifetime. Goes back to your slide from yesterday, right? Let's think about 3-4 incarnations ahead. Is this really going to make such a big difference in my present life, or is just my ego that is being hurt? Can you honestly give the answer? It's a personal journey, right?
I was thinking
Yes,
about
Marlene.
I was thinking about my own life, And I realize that I have been a constant dueler for a great part of my life, particularly in the car. You know, I always had to be the first one when the light changed to get out there. And yeah, and if somebody gave me the bird, oh man, I was more than ready to return it and to get really hostile, you know. And this went on for a long time. And in situations dealing with other people, I always loved getting in that last word, feeling that, boy, I put them in their place, you know. And sometimes, you know, it would ruin my whole day. And then I started taking Tai Chi lessons. And I learned that why ruin your whole day? Why are you upset the whole day? Isn't it better to just let it go, be peaceful, and live longer, probably? So that's how I view things, and I'm glad I changed. I feel very thankful that I was able to grasp the meaning of Taoism.
Yeah, very good. I like that. Yeah, you brought a very good point, right? Driving it shows our worst instincts, yeah, you know, and I think we all need to think hard when we are driving about how we are behaving, because in the end, that's how that shows still our inferiorities when we deal with aggressive drivers. We deal with those that cross in front of us, and yeah, you know, it's a challenge. Wayne, you had something to say also.
You know, I thought what Carol was saying about the fencing is very true for a lot of things. It's an exercise in self-control. I would imagine that if you lose your temper, you give openings to your opponent to take the advantage of you. I mean, advantage in the sport of it. You know, I was like Marlon with driving. That was my duel. I used to take it up to high speeds against people. It was a personal thing sometimes. I think that we had said that pride is involved. I felt not attacked, but I felt challenged, and I would take it to the nth degree in speed and recklessness, and endangering others. Fortunately, that an event occurred, not a dangerous event, but a very benign event, which changed my life for that aspect. But I was just thinking about, you know, every time I'm at Spiritist meetings and we're reading something, I always see, gee, it's always about me. Why I am such a flawed person. Everything is about me. I, much like the fencing, I joined the Police Athletic League as a young man for boxing. And I didn't do well there because I couldn't control myself. So my boxing turned into wrestling and kicking, and I couldn't stay there. So it's exercise and self-control, knowing who you are, and tamping down the negative energies that come out. I think pride is the key there.
Yeah, you see how interesting, right? We have fencing, Tai Chi, boxing, all the exercises that we learn more about ourselves. In the end, is what you said, right, Wayne? It's about each one of us. We're here. Everything that we read, we normally say that every time we read the gospel or the passage on Mondays on our fraternal assistance meeting, right? I always say it's personal. Every time you open a book and read, it's personal. It's for you. We tend to think that it's you think, oh, this is for my wife, my son, my cousin, no, it's for us. It's personal. It's always personal. And because we cannot control what others think and do, we can only control ourselves. And the more we make peace with this idea, and still we are not fully accepting of this idea that we cannot control others, it's going to be better. Our journey will be easier. Like Marlene said, we are going to live longer. We are going to live a more productive life if we can learn to be in peace with ourselves and with the world around us. Spiritism teaches us this is still a world of trials and atonements. So it is going to be very imperfect. But when we talk about duel, right? Duel was legal, and then it became illegal, but still practiced. Nowadays, in that form, I don't think there is anywhere else in the world that still have duels. Maybe left in one place or another, still in some places in the world. I'm not sure, but in all civilized countries, duel it's illegal. It's no longer practiced. So again, we find different ways of dueling. Yes, we did, but in that form, it's no longer legal anywhere. So thinking ahead, again, like Louis said, for 3 or 4 incarnations, probably we won't be talking about duel anymore, because it will, like Adolf says here, the word will no longer exist in your language except as a distant and vague souvenir of a past which is no more. We're not there yet. He wrote that 150 years ago, exactly, right? And we're not there yet. It's still present. We are still dueling in different forms, but we're moving forward, and we have to have this bird's eye view of humanity's progress to understand and accept the evolutionary path that is very still imperfect, but happening. Okay, let's read another one, Zoraida.
Okay. There is no doubt that a duel can be, in certain cases, proof of physical courage, of disregard for life, but also undoubtedly it bears proof of moral cowardice, as in suicide. A person who commits suicide lacks courage to face the vicissitudes of life, whereas the duelist, right? Whereas the duelist does not have the courage to face offenses. Did Christ not tell you that there is more honor and courage in offering the left cheek to the one who has struck your right cheek than to take revenge for an insult? Did not Christ say to Peter in the Garden of Olives, put your sword back into its place, for all who take the sword will perish by the sword? With these words, has Jesus not condemned duels forever? Indeed, my children, what is this courage born of a violent, bloody, and angry temper, roaring at the first sight of offense? Where then is the greatness of soul of one who at the slightest insult wants to wash it in blood? Yet let such individuals tremble, because always at the bottom of their conscience, a voice will cry to them, Cain, Cain, what have you done for your brother? To which they will answer, I shed his blood to save my honor. But the Lord will then answer to them, you wanted to save your honor before humans for a few moments that you have left to live on earth, but you did not think of saving it before God. You poor fool. How much blood would Christ ask of you for all the outrages he received? Not only did you hurt Jesus with the thorn and the spear, not only did you nail him in an infamous piece of wood, but also in the middle of his agony, one can hear the taunts that were lavished on him. What reparation, after so many outrages, did he ask of you? The last cry of the Lamb was a prayer for its executioners. Like him, do forgive and pray for those who have offended you. Dear friends, remember, this precept. Love one another. Then to every blow of hatred, you will respond with a smile, and to outrage with forgiveness. The world will no doubt rise up furiously and call you a coward, yet raise your head high, and then show that you are not afraid to also take thorns of your forehead, after the example of Christ, since your hand does not want to be an accomplice in a murder that is authorized, so to speak, by a false semblance of honor that is nothing but pride and self-esteem. In creating you, did God give you the right of life and death over one another? No, God only gave this right to nurture alone, to reform and rebuild. But to you, God does not even allow you to dispose of yourselves. Like the suicide, the duelist will be marked with blood when he or she arrives in God's presence. And to both, the sovereign judge has prepared harsh and long punishments. If the Lord has threatened with its justice anyone who insults their fellow humans by calling them Raka and saying, how much more severe will the punishment be for those who appear before it with their hands reddened in their fellow human blood? St. Augustine.
So this message from St. Augustine
Mm.
talks about, compares duel, brings a concept here that is very interesting, right? That if you die in a duel, you will be considered a suicide, a proof of moral cowardice, because you go in a duel knowing that you are either going to become a killer or you're going to become a suicide. And there are consequences for both, because if you are committing suicide, you are lacking courage to face the vicissitudes of life. That's what St. Augustine tells us about those that commit suicide. And if you enter into a duel, means that you couldn't bear the vicissitudes of life. You couldn't bear the trials and tribulations of being offended or offending someone. And then he brings this passage of Christ's life when Peter takes his sword and cuts the ear of a soldier that came to arrest Jesus. And Jesus tells Peter, put your sword back into place, for all who take the sword will perish by the sword. So he heals the soldier, and then he tells Peter, do not reply violence with violence. Do not, because then you have, you wash your hands with blood. And in the end, what you are doing is condemning yourself to some difficult consequences. We have to, he talks about Jesus, right? Jesus that was placed on the cross, and when he was on the cross, he asked Father to forgive those, they don't know what they are doing. So if we use this phrase on our personal challenges, forgive them, Father, they don't know what they are doing. Can't we use that? Or are we too proud or too selfish to not understand the other's struggles? Someone that is maybe accusing you, maybe attacking you, maybe they're having their own difficult struggles in their lives that they are lashing out on others as a way to escape their own inferno, their own personal hell. So do we consider that? So St. Augustine tells us, respond every blow of hatred with a smile, and to outrage with forgiveness. If we all do that, the world will no doubt rise and call you coward. But you raise your head high, and you are not afraid, because you know that this is only temporary, that is only hurting your pride and self-esteem and nothing more than that. And in the long term, in the long journey, you are going to benefit from being able to overlook these challenges that are placed in your way. They are temporary. They are an exercise for us to evolve and to learn from the challenges and difficulties on our daily lives. Okay. Anyone else here? Any comments here? Okay, next one. You're on mute, Soraya.
Okay, sorry. The duel is, as in the past, what used to be called God's judgment, one of those barbaric institutions which will govern society. What would you say, however, if you saw the two antagonists plunge into boiling water or subjected to the contact of a hot iron to end their quarrel and give reason to the one who best undergo the test? You will regard these customs as totally insane. The duel is even worse than all this. For an eminent duelist, it is an assassination committed in cold blood with intended premeditation. Since the duelist is sure of the blow he or she would strike for the adversary, almost certainly to succumb because of the weakness or inability, a suicide committed with the coldest calculation. I know that we often try to avoid this equally criminal alternative by relying on chance, but then it is not another form of devolving judgment to God as conceived by the Middle Ages. And yet, at the epoch, we were infinitely less guilty. The very expression God's judgment indicates faith. Naive, it is true, but still faith in the justice of God, which could not allow an innocent to succumb, whereas in a duel we rely on the brute force, so that it is often the offended party who succumbs. Oh, stupid self-esteem, you foolish vanity, you foolish pride. When will you be replaced by Christian charity, love of neighbor and humility, of which Christ gave the example and left us the precepts? Only then those who monstrous prejudices will still govern humans, and which the laws are powerless to repress, will vanish, because it is not enough to prohibit evil and to prescribe good. It is necessary that the principle of good and a revulsion for evil become deeply embedded in human hearts. Protect the spirit.
Okay, so if you take this last phrase here and apply, forget about duel, just apply to our daily lives. Oh, stupid self-esteem, you foolish vanity, you foolish pride, when you be replaced by Christian charity, love of neighbor, and humility, of which Christ gave the example and left us to the precept. Only then those monstrous prejudices which still govern humans and which the laws are powerless to repress will vanish. Because it is not enough to prohibit evil and to prescribe good. It is necessary that the principle of good and a revulsion for evil become deeply embedded in human hearts. We just have to read and reread this passage from this protector spirit to think about our present lives, right? Because in the end, that's exactly what we continue to do. Our vanity, our pride, we are still struggle to replace it with a humility, with a love of our neighbor, And love here, in the sense of accept and understand their own needs and their own path, because they are different from our path. We may think that ourselves we are already on a more evolved path, because we tend not to want to harm those that cause us, that do us evil. We tend not to hate anyone. But if we think of someone that comes from a very inferior level of evolution and is making a very hard effort to progress. So Ajusara likes to use the grade example, right? If in this life you started on a scale from 0 to 10, if you start on a 5 and you end up on a 6, you evolved 10%, 20%, right? But if you start on a 1 and you finish on a 3, you are still inferior to those that are on a 6, but you evolved how much? 300%, 200%, right? So again, we have to look at where the others are coming from and the path of evolution of others, and respect their needs and their challenges. We can only do our part. So let us fight against our own pride, our own vanity, try to replace it with the Christian charity, the love of neighbor, understanding again, and I will always stress this, that we are still struggling to evolve. So we are not going to achieve this on overnight, but it's a journey. And like Marlene gave the example, right? She already came a long way from the time that she was trying to do justice every single day and get frustrated because the world didn't respond how she expected the world to respond. Once we find and accept that the world is not going to respond according to our desires, the only thing we can control is our own behavior and our own reactions to how the world lives around us. We are going to find much more peace, and finding peace will allow us to progress faster, because we are not going to be distracted by these difficulties that come our way every day, that it distracts us because we pay too much attention to it. If we pay less attention to it, we are able to learn to pay less attention to these small struggles of our daily lives, where it's going to help us move forward faster. Okay. Anyone else here? Any comments?
Johnny,
Yes.
I don't have the full text in English, so it's difficult for me sometimes. In the last paragraph, he mentions only then those monstrous prejudices. What prejudices is he referring to in the past paragraph?
He's talking about our pride and vanity, right? Whenever we are acting our pride or vanity, we are having prejudices against others' behaviors and others' actions, right? That's how I understand this. Because when you think someone is wrong, you may be right or maybe not. Or you're probably not 100% right, because nobody is 100% right or 100% wrong at our stage, right? So every time you think someone different that has a different idea, you have a problem with that. It's some sort of prejudice, right? That you are having against each other. We're not talking prejudice here, race prejudice, religion prejudice, or it's
not preconception, but prejudice. Okay, got it.
Yeah, in the sense that we are placing ourselves opposite to those that we think are different from us. So we are creating a prejudice, not in the sense of those known prejudice, but this type of situations. Yeah. Okay. Right. Next one.
Okay, 14. What opinion will people have of me? You often ask. If I refuse a reparation which is asked of me, or if I do not ask for one from the one who offended me, mad people and backward individuals like you certainly blame you. Yet those who are enlightened by the torch of intellectual and moral progress will say that you are acting according to true wisdom. Just think a little for a word often said on the part of one of your fellow human beings, thoughtlessly or quite harmlessly. Your pride gets hurt, and then you react to it in a sharp way, hence provoking animosity. Before reaching the decisive moment, ask yourself if you're acting as a Christian. What account will you owe to society if you deprive it of one of its members? Do you think that the remorse of having taken from a woman a companion, from a mother a child, from children their parent and support? Certainly whoever made the offense owes some reparation, but would it not be more honorable for one to give it spontaneously, like acknowledging one's wrongs, than to expose the life of the one who has the right to complain? As the offender, I agree that sometimes we can be seriously offended, either in our person or in the relation to our nearest and dearest. Then self-esteem is no longer just an issue. Our heart is injured, it suffers. But apart from the fact that it is stupid to throw on one's life against a capable wrench for an infamy, does the latter, once dead, the affront, whatever it is, cease to exist? Does not shed blood give more notoriety to a fact which, if it is false, would fade away by itself, and which, if it is true, should be kept in silence? Therefore, all that remains is a satisfaction of satisfied revenge. Alas, a sad satisfaction which often leaves bitter regrets from the life. And if it is the offended that succumbs, where is the reparation? When charity becomes a rule of conduct for humankind, they will conform their actions and their words to this maxim. Do not do unto others what you will not want done to you. Will all causes for dissension then disappear, and with then those of duels and wars, which are duels of nation against nation?
Francois Xavier, which was most probably Marie-Françoise Xavier Bichat, a French anatomist and physiologist. The concept here, it's very interesting, right? So let's say you go to the duel and one of them is killed. How did it correct anything? It didn't, right? The offense still exists. If it's true, continues to be true. If it's false, continues to be false and just expand. So what he's saying here is using reason to make us reflect that the duel, and again, bring it to our daily lives. It's not going to solve the situation. It's only to cause more grievance. And in this case, someone here that if you kill someone, that you remove a woman from her husband, a mother from her child, a child from their parent, and so on and so forth. And when he says, does not shed blood give more notoriety to a fact which, if it is false, would fade away by itself, and which, if it's true, should be kept in silence? I remember the other Francois Xavier, Chico Xavier, right? That once he was asked why, when he was accused or blamed on things, he would never reply. And he answered, well, if they are wrong, they don't deserve my answer. And if they are right, there is nothing I can say. So, you know, you allow things to take their own course. You don't put more fuel to the fire, because if it is what it's called today fake news, it will disappear eventually, because the truth will always prevail eventually. And if it's true, it is the truth. So it will prevail by itself. So that's what he's trying to tell us here. Look at the consequences. Look and analyze what is going to happen if you take any dispute to the next step. Is it going to bring any benefit to you or to the other, or is it going to cause more harm to the involved parties? And if it's going to cause more harm, then there is no reason for us to escalate it, because there cannot be any reason to make things worse than they already are. Okay, so let's finish. It's the last one here.
15. If a worldly person, a happy individual, who because of a hurtful word, slight motive, plays with their life, which he or she owes to God, is also playing with the life of his or her fellow beings, which belongs only to God. This person is 100 times guiltier than the wretch who, driven by greed, sometimes by need, enters a home to steal coveted goods and kills those who oppose their purpose. The latter is almost always an uneducated person, having only imperfect notions of good and evil, while the dualist almost always belongs to the most enlightened social classes. One kills brutally, whereas the other does it methodically and politely, which makes society excuse him or her. I would even add that the dualist is infinitely more guilty than the wretch who, yielding to a feeling of revenge, kills in a moment of exasperation. A dualist has no excuse for being overthrown by passion, because between insult and reparation, there is always time for one to think. A dualist therefore acts coldly and deliberately. Everything is calculated and studied to more surely kill the opponent. It is true that the dualist also endangers his or her life, and this is what rehabilitates the duel in the eyes of the world, because we see it in an act of courage and no fear of losing one's own life. Yet is there real courage when you are so sure of yourself? The duel, a leftover from the times of barbarism, when the right of the strongest was the law, will disappear with a healthier appreciation of what the true point of honor is, and as humans come to possess a more lively faith of future life. St. Augustine.
Read the note.
Okay. Duels are becoming less and less frequent, and if we still witness some painful occurrences from time to time, their number is not compatible to what it used to be. Formerly, one would not leave one's home without predicting a duel, so one always took precautions accordingly. A characteristic sign of the customs of people and times and of their habits is to be found in the use, whether visibly or hidden, of offensive and defensive weapons. The abolition of such use testifies to a softening of matters, and it is curious to follow its gradation from time, when the knights never rode without wearing armors and carrying a lance, until they started to sport a simple sword, which has become more like an ornament and an accessory of a course of arms than an aggressive weapon. Another trait of matter is that once person-to-person combats took place in the street in front of the crowd, which moved away to leave the field free, whereas today we hide. Nowadays, the death of a person is regarded as an event. We are moved by it, whereas in the past we would not pay attention to it. Spiritism will take away these last vintages of barbarism by instilling in humans a feeling of charity and fraternity.
So St. Augustine talks to us here about responsibility and knowledge and consequence for our actions. And that's very important, because something that we always say here, the consequences are always according to our degree of knowledge and intention. So you killed someone, there will always be a consequence. But you kill for lack of a better understanding or knowledge, or in an act of impulse because you are being attacked or something like that. It's not a premeditated murder, has a completely different consequence from what he's describing here as in a duel, because you are planning, you are going there, you know that what's going to happen, you are going to kill someone or be killed. So there is a lot of premeditation. Human laws today here judge differently premeditated crime and crimes of impulse, right? If you kill someone in an act of rage because you lost your temper or you were in a fight, it's judged differently in the sentence to someone that premeditated a murder, planned a murder, and went there and executed the murder. Because it is, if the imperfect human laws already judge the intention and take into consideration the intention in the action, you can imagine the divine laws that are perfect are going to consider it in a much more ample way, the intention and the consequence. Of course, there is always consequences, but it's the same. We give the example of children, right? A 2-year-old break a vase at your home, you're not going to punish them in the same way as a 13-year-old that breaks the vase at your home, because the 13-year-old knows what they're doing. The 2-year-old doesn't know much what they're doing. So it's the same thing with the divine law. It judges the consequences in the divine law are according to our intention and according to our knowledge of the situation. And then Kardec finishes here talking about the evolution of the duel at his time, right? That is becoming less and less frequent. It's become hidden. It's been doing at dawn, not in front of everyone that was in the past, in the Middle Ages. Even the knights here at that time, that their armors are changing. So showing to us that as progress comes along, these barbaric acts tend to slowly disappear. Are we free of barbaric acts? No, we're not. Far from it. We still see it every day, and some places more than others. But that's because we still live in a world of trials and atonements, and we are still dealing with spirits that are having their opportunity here to show that they can stay in this place when it becomes a world of regeneration, which is actually the book by Divaldo, right? On the Path of a World of Regeneration. And those that need to because of their vibrational levels, because of their intention of still doing evil above practicing good, to have to move to a less evolved world. And you see that in the book, right, Zoraida, that whole colonies of the lower zones being moved away from the earth to another less evolved world, right? So next month we start chapter 13. Do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. Okay. Any final comments here? Okay. Thank you all for your patience, for staying with us. Next Sunday, we start the first of 2 lectures by Luis on instinct and intelligence. I highly recommend that you join us. It's a presentation that will take two Sundays, one in October and one in November. The third Sunday of October, which is the 17th, and the third Sunday of November, which is November 20th. Okay, this is replacing the book On the Way to the Light that we finished last month. And then in December, the third Sunday of December, we'll have our year-end lecture by Jusara that she always gives to us by the end of the year. Okay. And then we'll start a new book in January that we haven't yet decided. Okay. So next Sunday, we'll have Louis' lecture, Instinct and Intelligence. Carol, do our final prayer. Thanks.
Sure. Thank you, John, and everyone. Infinite Creator, Supreme Intelligence, and First Cause, we are grateful today to be together for our study of the Gospel according to Spiritism, reviewing Chapter 12. We are still evolving, and we know that we can proceed and deal with negative sentiments toward others. We have to be very mindful as how we approach difficult situations. We are creating our future today, and there is cause and consequence. Strive to have a clear conscience, and as we do this, may we try to lessen our pride, our vanity, and our selfishness. May we love one another and forgive more easily. We are grateful for our spiritual benefactors, the good spirits, the mentors, the helpers, the teachers who are with us today, helping us, guiding us to receive a deeper understanding and the blessings of the teachings which we have learned today. We are grateful for all that we have received today and during the week, and may we be open and receptive to receive these benefits throughout the week as we do our part. We humbly ask for the love, light, and peace of Christ to be with us in our hearts and in our minds. And may we do the good works each and every day as we are able to do so for those who are receptive. We ask that we be protected and go safely now to our family, friends, and loved ones. And may we continue throughout the week with our prayers, with our studies, and with our mindfulness. We offer our prayers for those who are in need, those who are suffering in the physical world as well as the spiritual world. We ask that our guides and our benefactors assist us in doing so. We close now and remind ourselves to be beacons of light as we go forth now to family, friends, loved ones, and co-workers. Go in peace and gratitude, so be it.